This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good morning, Rabbi Glatstein. So we're going to do something quite interesting this morning. Yesterday was a historic day in Jewish history as part of Eretz Yisrael was officially recognized by the United States of America and the President of the United States.
Golan.
And as the Prime Minister declared, Eretz Yisrael has had a few friends over the years, going back to Koresh, Cyrus the Great, who Koresh was very instrumental in building the second Beis HaMikdash. In fact, God wanted Koresh to personally build the second Beis HaMikdash. The Gemara Megillah says on Daf Yud Aleph, and Koresh had others do it, and God had complaints against Koresh. And then Harry Truman was invoked. But of course, this is the second time recently where the United States government is recognizing part of Eretz Yisrael. And there are many different versions of the Chafetz Chaim's reaction to the Balfour Declaration, 1917. There are many nuschais, there are many gersais, but the way Rabbi Cheskel Levenstein writes it in the Ari Cheskel in the Sefer Amunah, he says the Chafetz Chaim says it's a hisoirus of Geula, which means that things are happening, and it's up to us to take advantage and make sure that it goes in the proper halachic direction. And that means we have to be mechazek ourselves and support the institutions in Eretz Yisrael that bring ruchnias to Eretz Yisrael. But what was interesting to me is everybody knows the Golan, and I think most people think it's in the north of Israel, which is partially true, but not entirely. It's pretty much Transjordan. So what I want to speak about this morning is, where is the Golan? Where are the Golan Heights? Most people don't even know. What Shevet had access to this? Where is this in relation to Eretz Yisrael proper? And the first thing we're going to learn is it's Transjordan. It's on the other side of the Yarden. So it's above, it's north of the Galilee.
It's northeast of the
It's northeast of the Galilee. So the Galilee is in southwest. The Yarden is the western border. It goes in the north up to the Hermon. And I think also into the anti-Lebanon mountains, it's called. Anti-Lebanon mountains. And it borders Syria. But, so which Shevet do you think occupied this region? And does anybody know where in the Chumash is Golan mentioned? Does it say the word Golan in the Chumash? It's, I think, mentioned once in the Chumash and once in the Nevi'im. It's mentioned in the Chumash in Va'aschanan, Ve'es Golan Babashan Lamanashi, which means the Golan was one of the 6 Ari Miklat. Okay, that's where people would go if they killed B'Shogeg. So it's part of Chatzi Shevet Menashe.
Chatzi that was inside?
The Chatzi that was Transjordan. Yeah. So what I was thinking...
Just say outside of...
Transjordan just means the other side of the Yarden. That's not a political term, but a geographical term. You know, the other side of the Yarden.
By the way, you know they discovered 57 Botei Knesios archaeologically in the Golan.
Yeah, it was that's one of the first settled areas that Klal Yisrael settled in their conquest of Eretz Yisrael, because they conquered it before they went to Eretz Yisrael proper. Now, Legabe Chumash and Masrois, I don't know if it has Kedushas Eretz Yisrael, but Legabe Yishuv Eretz Yisrael, that would be a machlokes whether one's Mekayim the mitzvah, but certainly it's part of Eretz Yisrael. It's part of Eretz Yisrael. So what I was thinking about is, first of all, who occupied it? Half of Menashe. And what is this whole concept that half of Menashe is in Transjordan and the other half is in Eretz Yisrael proper? Why would that be? What's the meaning of that? And what does this land represent? So I have a sefer over here. It's actually a very hard sefer to get hold of because it's out of print. My friend Gedalia Schwartz got it for me a couple years ago. It's one of the Sarma of Rabbi Chil Michel Stern, who we mentioned wrote over 100 Svarim. And I think we went to his house, he didn't even have it anymore. But, this is a sefer about the various regions of Eretz Yisrael, cities of Eretz Yisrael. And let's see what he says. This is on page Kuf Mem Beis. The Ramban writes, She'asiris mibnei Menashe hayu bebashan. That 1/10 of the Bnei Menashe were in the Bashan. Okay? So ve'ez Golan ba Bashan la Menashe. That means like this. Golan is just a city. Is a city. Golan is a city in the region of the Bashan. What does it mean the Bashan? This was the land of Og. Og Melech HaBashan. So when we conquered Og, we took Og's possession, Og's land, as ours, and went to Menashe. V'chol hashar be'Eretz Yisrael gufei. 90% of Menashe inherited in Eretz Yisrael proper. Shekasav v'lachatzi shevet Menashe ben Yosef mitchila loibo lefanav shevet Menashe. In the beginning, Shevet Menashe did not come before him. Avol kasher chalak ha'aretz l'shnei hashvatim. When Eretz Yisrael was divided to two shvatim, Ra, meaning Rashi Eretz Gedol Yosef min Haroilem. They saw, we'll see what this means, they saw the land was even bigger than what they were deserving of, what was fit for them. Ubikesh mishi yirtzas nachel imahem. Vayu anoshim misham Menashe yirtzaba, ulai anshe mikna hayu, v'nasal lahem chalkam. Meaning like this.
It's too big.
What is it? That means
portion, so
when they had the area of Ever LaYarden, Menashe didn't come first. Menashe had no desire. They wanted Eretz Yisrael proper. But when they saw the Ever LaYarden is basically the size of the whole Eretz Yisrael, and Reuven and Gad were getting a gezunta chelek, so Moshe said, who else wants? Does anybody else want? Meaning there's too much land for Reuven and Gad. So a few Menashim stood up. They were probably men of cattle, as the Ramban suggests, and they got their chelek. So the question is, what do you mean velachatzi, right? V'tam velachatzi cholak echad mehem, chelek echad mehem. It just means a small share. V'chein oz yecholei ka'am Yisrael lachatzi, chatzi am hayu acharei tivni ben ginis, achatzi acharei imri. This is another example where chatzi does not mean half; it's just part. V'ha'inyan ki b'nei Menashe hayu shmoina batei avos. Menashe consisted of 8 families, kakasav of Parsha Sapkudim, like it says in Bamidbar. Umishpachas hamachiri, umishpachas hagiladi yarshu be'eretz hazos. The batei avos of Machir ben Menashe, Gilad ben Menashe inherited this land. Ki hayu anshe chayil. They were men of war. V'lachdu oisam ha'atzma. They conquered it themselves. V'nasalam chilek rav mehem, and they got a very big share. Basically, they lucked out in a sense, and that is, they got a tremendous portion of land. The other 6 families crossed the Yarden. D'chsev b'Yoshua, v'ahi l'vnei Menashe hanoi sarim l'mishpachaysam l'vnei Aviezer v'l'vnei Chelek v'l'vnei Asriel v'l'vnei Shechem v'l'vnei Chever v'l'vnei Shmida v'zeu mashu kasav sham v'yiplu chevlei Menashe asara. It fell to them the share of Menashe. Levad me'eretz hagil of Rabashan shem Yarden. What does this mean? V'atam ki asu min ha'aretz tisha chalakim shavim l'tisha samatos. They made 9 portions for the 9 tribes of Menashe.
Inside Eretz Yisrael, or that includes both sides of the Yarden?
Let's see. So the reason is, they made out of the land 9 shares, 9 equal shares. V'lo yachlu laseis lamata Menashe hanoisarim chelek shalem. They could not give to Mata Menashe, meaning like this. They made out of Eretz Yisrael proper 9 shares. Yehuda, Binyamin, Ephraim, Naphtali, they made 9 shares for the 9 tribes. But they couldn't give Menashe a whole share. For like Chatzi Chelek, they couldn't give them a half a share. Ki Rubam Nisharu, most of them remained. V'hinei asu min hashevet kulei chalakim. They divided Menashe into portions. Umatzu ki asiras hashevet bavad nachlo be'eretz habashan. They found that 1/10 of the shevet alone inherited in the Bashan. Ve'esar hayados nisharu. They basically, and 10 portions remained. So 1/10 remained in the Bashan, and 10 portions remained. Meaning they broke up the chelek of Menashe into 10 portions. But the thing is, we only have 9 families to give to now, because 1 family took an Ever LaYarden. But Eretz Yisrael proper, they broke up into 10, and 10 for 9 families. So now you have an extra portion in Eretz Yisrael proper. V'nasnu la mechelek shevet shalem. And they gave him from the chelek of a whole shevet asara chavalim, v'echad nishar, with 1 remaining. V'ulai ba'avur heyois shtei hamishpachas eila hamakiri v'hagaladi hamu'atos b'shevet. Maybe because Machir and Gilad were the fewest of the Shevet, Ratzul hiparad mishiftam. They wanted to separate. Kedei shatia lahem nachla rabba mehem. So that...
Sorry, anybody with a black Kia, K-I-A car?
So that
Somebody has to get out.
So that they should have a big share. Ki lachduha b'charavam, or k'may shenemar ki hu hayish malchama. Vayhiloi hagilad v'habashan al kein hisker b'shevet zeh chavalim. V'loi hisker kein b'shar shvatim kach nirali. So Ramban seems to learn that the portion of Menashe was broken up into different strips, and each family got one strip. And apparently Machir and Gilad were very small, and they didn't want to get a tiny little strip, so they took a bigger share in Evar LeYarden. But we're going to have to see, we're about to see, why was Menashe broken up, as opposed to all the other Shvatim, every other Shevet.
They asked for it, right? Reuben, Gad, and Chatzi, Shevet, Menashe, they asked Moshe before they...
Well, Gad asked, Reuven asked, but Menashe at first did not ask. It's only when Moshe Rabbeinu saw that there was a lot of land, so he offered it.
Oh.
Why did they take him up on it? None of the other Shvatim did. So what's the meaning of this? So he brings some interesting things here. He brings over here, L'Menashe nechleka nachlasam l'shnayim. Menashe's share was broken up into two. Why? Bi'er b'Moshe Zakenim, l'fisha Yosef garam l'kriyas habagadim shel Yaakov. Yosef caused Yaakov to tear his clothing when Yosef was basically when Yosef was thrown into the pit. L'chein nikra nachlasam shel bnei banav shel Yosef. Apparently Yosef was somewhat at fault for inciting the brothers against him. He provoked them. And this comes from a medrash in Bereshis Rabbah. So it comes out very nice. Menashe ben Yosef. Why does it have to say ben Yosef? It says Yosef because it was because of what Yosef did. Now Chelkas Chatzi Menashe Gadol Harbe Yosef Me'erach Chelek Sheni Shnei Ashvatim Gad v'Ruvain. Basically, Menashe's half a share was much bigger proportionally than the share of Ruvain and Gad. Meaning Ruvain got a chunk, Gad got a chunk, but that was for their whole Shevet. And half of Menashe, you would have thought would have gotten like half of that size. And he got much, much more, of course, in ratio than half the size of Ruvain and Gad. Also, another thing is, remember, there's something called the Tanai Gad, Tanai B'nai Ruvain. Remember that? There's something called the Tanai Gad, Tanai B'nai Ruvain. Where do we learn out stipulations from? From the B'nai Gad and B'nai Ruvain. That Moshe said, if you go in front of the Klal Yisrael and you fight ahead of them, then you could have your share. And if you don't go, then you don't. So we learn from there, they have to have the positive before the negative, and you have to have the Tanai before the Ki. A whole array of halachas we learn out from stipulations. Why is it called Tanai B'nai Gad, Tanai B'nai Ruvain? Why not Tanai B'nai Gad B'nai Ruvain V'chatzi Shevet Menashe? Moshe never made a Tanai with B'nai Menashe. They were not required to go fight in Israel proper to be able to regain gain their portion. It could be because the plan was not to give it to them. It's only because they didn't know what to do. Moshe didn't know what to do. So he said, anybody want? It was like an afterthought. It's interesting. Why? Why? That's how the Ramban learned. So why did Moshe Rabbeinu make a Tanai with them?
They didn't have to make the Tanai.
It seems like what we learned earlier is that they didn't come to Moshe Rabbeinu. But Moshe Rabbeinu didn't know what to do with the land, so he offered it. So a very important explanation is offered in the Netziv, in the Hamek Davar. Moshe Rabbeinu ra shebe'ever hayarden koyach ha'Torah muat. There was a very diminished power of Torah on the Ever Hayarden. L'chein hishtada lahashsil b'kirbam gedolei Torah she'iru machshakei aretz. Therefore, Moshe Rabbeinu made an effort to plant Gedolei Yisrael, to illuminate the darkness of the Golas. U'bnei Menashe hayu lahem koyach lios mechoikekim. The Bnei Menashe had a special power to be lawgivers. Kedivrei Devorah, like the words of Devorah, Mini machir yardu mechoikekim. Rosh Yeshivas were from Yehuda. The Rosh Yeshivas were from Shevet Yehuda v'hayu v'hem hayu gam mizera Yehuda. Kamuva b'yivamas hainu b'nei Shagov ben Chetzron shenasa Eishes bas Machir ben Menashe v'hayu b'nei mechoikekim ba'isosha. It sounds like the Bnei Menashe were also descendants of the Zera Yehuda, because the son of Chetzron married a woman who is the daughter of Machir ben Menashe. So the children were lawgivers. There's a difference between a Rosh Hashiva and a lawgiver. It's like, I would call it the difference between a Rosh Hashiva and a Paisek, right? There are different types of leaders in Klal Yisrael. You could have people who teach the Lamdos and teach people who make are decisive in matters of halacha. And the Mechoikekim came from Menashe. V'hishtadel Moshe sheyisratzu heima l'shoz ever hayadim shem zeh hiram nacha ad shenisratzu. You know why they got such a big land? Moshe persuaded these guys to stay so they could be the poiskim of the Ever LaYarden. So it's very interesting. So the Golan was the area of Torah for the Ever LaYarden. V'chein mefurish b'Yushalmi shachatzi shevet Menashe loy notlu v'loy bikshu me'asman es hachelek. Chatzi Menashe did not ask for their share. Ela Moshe who shenasal Moshe gave them on their own. Sha'amru sham shein maviyim bikurim me'ever hayarden. They said, we don't want le'ever hayarden because you can't bring bikurim from the ever hayarden. Number one, and they brought two reasons. Number one, it's not called Eretz Zavas Cholav Udvash. Only Israel proper is flowing with milk and honey, not ever hayarden. And number two, mishum denemar bebikurim asher nasata li Hashem. We darshan by bikurim that God gave me. That implies what God gave me and not what I took on my own. Because dahainu shloim hayu hamavakshin. So basically, Moshe gave it to them because they didn't want to take it, because they wanted to be able to bring bikurim. V'loi kibnei Gad v'Ruvein she'em bikshu asachelek. So listen carefully. This is very interesting. The Gemara gives two reasons why you don't bring bikurim me'ever hayarden. Number one, because it doesn't flow with milk and honey. Number two, because it has to be land that God gave you and not that you took. What's the nafkamina between these two reasons? Whether Chatzi Sheva Menashe brings bikurim. If the reason that you're parted from bikurim because it doesn't flow with milk and honey, none of the ever hayarden flows with milk and honey. If the reason is
wouldn't bring either.
What?
God and Reuven wouldn't bring either.
No, Chatzi Menashe wouldn't bring either. Of course, Bnei Gad and Bnei Reuven would not bring. Right? None of the ever hayarden brings.
So why would the Svar that Chatzi Menashe should bring?
But if the reason that you're parted from bikurim is because it's land that you took on your own and not that God gave you, Chatzi Menashe did not take it, God gave it to them. They didn't want it. Gad and Reuven conquered it, and they asked Moshe for it, and they took it. Chatzi Menashe, they had to be persuaded by Moshe to take it, to remain there, to be the Gedolei Torah. So Yushalmi says there's an afkamina. Lefi hatam shalei nikra eretz zavas chalav dvash. You can't bring it, but according to the reason that that they took it on their own, that doesn't apply to Chatzi Menashe. This implies, like the Netziv, that Menashe didn't request Nachala, Moshe gave it to them. Therefore, Moshe didn't make a Tanai. Moshe didn't have, to the Bnei Gad and Bnei Reuven, Moshe said, you want it? You're going to have to go fight. But Moshe didn't want to do that to the Chatzi Menashe. He didn't want anything to stand in their way from taking the Ever Layarden. Ki Moshe ratza sheyelchu l'sham, v'chedei sheyisratzu la'lechas, nasan lahem harbe nachala. And in order to appease them to go, he gave them a big share. The Iker Mataras Moshe, that the Torah should be Yisrabem Me'ever Layarden. So it's interesting. The Golan was the light of the Ever Layarden area.
Why would there be an Ari Miklat in Ever Layarden if it doesn't have the Kedusha of Eretz Yisrael?
It has some Kedusha. You might not get Yishuv Eretz Yisrael, but it has some kedusha.
Yeah, I guess they had to have one because you had a lot of Yidden there. You had Reuven, Gad, and Chatzimanashe.
And you also had a lot of murderers there. You had a lot of murderers there. Menashe, Gilad, Harvey Roitzchem, Begilad. Yeah.
Why did they need an incentive to go there to teach Torah? Are we saying that rabbis and malamdim need an incentive to go to different places, to out of town, so to speak?
Apparently, right? Wouldn't it be more convenient to stay in Yerushalayim and from neighborhood where you have kosher pizza stores, and now you have to go out into the Golan, you know? Also, it's probably dangerous there, you know? It's bordering enemy territory. Okay.
Remember in the 50s and 60s, they said in Lakewood you could go out and you had to be tachon, your kids will be from. Because a lot of Lakewood boys would not go out not with yeshivas. So,
very interesting,
so
yeah.
Said that. You got the guys to go out of town. Chom tried to need that incentive.
Okay, good. Now, furthermore, regarding the fact that Menashe did not need this Tanai, Kasvu Gam Hagriz, the Brisker Rav writes on the Ala Torah in Parshas Matos, he says, Ach tzarch yin gadol harehu neged mikra mefurash, v'lo ruveni, v'la gadi, v'la chatzi shev Menashe, Omar Yeshua leimar, Sochor esadavar shotzi v'eschem Moshe, v'yatem tabru chamushim le'achichem v'shavtem l'artza Yerushaschem, v'yishtem Oisah. So the pasuk in Yeshua says explicitly that Moshe did make a Tanai with Chatzi Menashe. V'chein b'Yeshua, Az Yikro Yeshua Rebbeinu V'gad V'chatzi Menashe V'yom Aleim. You kept the Tanai that Moshe told you. So we see there was a Tanai. Meaning, not everybody agrees that there wasn't a Tanai to the Bnei Menashe. The Brisker Rav learns, yes, there was a Tanai to the Bnei Menashe. This that we call it Tanai Bnei Gad, Tanai Bnei Ruvain. The Brisker Rav would say it's also Tanai Chatzi Menashe, not like the Netziv. So it's an interesting machlokes between the Netziv and the Brisker Rav. The Netziv learns there was no Tanai to the Bnei Menashe. Moshe persuaded the Bnei Menashe to go, to be the Rabbanim of the Ever Layarden. The Brisker Rav learns, no, the Tanai was the Bnei Gad and Bnei Reuven as well. Tan Noisaf, another reason. Efshar Lahavi, we could bring Sharim Matzinu in the Ba'abar Benel. We find in the Ba'abar Benel, Ki nachlas Menashe kvar hoisa bidei Yisrael biyamav shel Yosef. Already back in the time of Joseph, the Jews owned the Ever Layarden area in the Bashan. V'lachei nidna ata arev kinisasam le'eretz lemenashe. Erev kinisasam le'eretz lemenashe. Therefore, on the brink of going into Eretz Yisrael, it was given back to the Bnei Menashe. This is what the Abar Benel writes. V'yesh omer sheYosef kana ele ha'arim b'zman harav shel Mitzrayim. Abar Benel learns that the first land conquered by Eretz Yisrael, by the Jewish people, was the Bashan. When? Well before we even left Egypt. When? In the time of famine. When Yosef bought the land, Yosef bought the Bashan. And now Klal Yisrael conquered it. V'shavu aram liYisrael. V'shalu b'nei Machir Yerushasam imam. And the b'nei Machir says, I want my mama's Yerusha back. So to me this is a very moving idea. Because we know that the future redemption will parallel the original redemption. So that means if the first time we came into Eretz Yisrael, the first thing that went under our control was that area of the Bashan.
Golan. So
we hope this now also, this is the beginning of Mirz Hashem, Yeshua for Klal Yisrael. Okay. Ukvar matzinu, shekadivrei Abar Benel mavor befeirosh, l'divrei hayamim, hamiyuchas l'talmid of Sadia Gaon. This chiddush of Abar Benel is explicitly found in the commentary of Divrei Hayamim that's attributed to Reb Sadia Gaon. Ki hatiur shemachir lachad es hagilad. The description that Machir conquered the Gilad, v'yair kavash es kanas, lo yirav bizman seisem Mitzrayim. Did not happen when we left Egypt. El b'yamav shel Yosef. The Talmud of Sadia Gaon learns that when the Chumash tells us that they conquered Gilad and Kanas, it didn't happen when they left Egypt. It happened well back in the times of Yosef. Hanachala shetafsu b'yamav shel tanusa shel Yosef shel yamelch ala aretz. The nachala that took place in the time of Yosef's dominion, who he was the king over the land, Chshames Yosef echav nischazku umois v'takfu goyim v'lakchu miyadam. And they settled in it until Klal Yisrael came to Eretz Yisrael. The reason why Bnei Machir wanted the Gilad is because it belonged to Yosef HaTzadik. Moshe gave them what their father had taken. These are stories about what happened in the past. This is mamish hafla v'fela. Even though in the Chumash it says that Machir and Yair and Noivach conquered these areas when we left Mitzrayim. No, it's not true, says Talmud Reb Sadia Gaon. It's a story that happened in the past. Machir, Yair, and Noivach, they didn't take anything in the Midbar, but rather they took it when we were still in Mitzrayim. So it comes out, it's very interesting, that actually the Bashan and the Golan was the first land that Klal Yisrael ever took in Eretz Yisrael. So we should be Zoicha Taka Livon Sham, should be Mezakas with all of Eretz Yisrael, and with the return of the Shechina to Eretz Yisrael, we should be Zoicha V'sachazenu Einenu B'shuvcha L'tzion B'rachamim. Amen.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.